Hello and welcome to The Hash. Happy Monday. Thanks for being with us. I am Zach Seward. I am joined by Naomi Rockwell, Jen Sanasi, and Christy Harkin in for Will Foxley today and tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, Christy. Let's start this thing off right. Naomi, you have our first story of the day. What's going on?
PayPal's going on. So is PayPal finally fulfilling its original vision of creating the new world currency? Perhaps there is hidden code in the company's iPhone app that shows a potential PayPal coin, which would be backed by the US dollar. Zach, I'm actually going to throw it straight to you because I believe CoinDesk originally talked about this back in September. So what did we find out then?
We had some hints that this was coming down the pike for a while now. We weren't able to pin it down all the way, but there was definitely talk about this going on in the background, right? So this stems, I think, in part from PayPal's acquisition of Curve, which is a multi-party computation shop that does crypto custody technology. So they have the chops and the technical capacity to potentially do this thing. And now it seems as though they're moving forward with it, which is really quite notable. You notice that they have gotten into crypto since I think last October, when they announced that they were teaming up with Paxos to make this all happen, last year being 2020, by the way. So this has been brewing for some time now, and it's really, really interesting to see that they are seeking to create their own stablecoin to avoid some of the headaches of dealing with fiat in the middle here, and could suggest that that PayPal is quite serious about its crypto aspirations. So really interesting to see, very interesting to see this come out. I saw Jen's hand come up, really interested for her take as well.
Yeah, Zach, I'm so curious if they're going to lose the headaches on the fiat side and maybe gain the headaches when it comes to regulation. I want to read this quote from PayPal Senior VP of Crypto and Digital Currencies, Jose Fernandez. He said, "We're exploring a stablecoin. If and when we seek to move forward, we will, of course, work closely with relevant regulators." But I mean, I remember Gary Gensler last year saying so many things that were just not in favor of stablecoins. I think he called it a poker chip at one point to be used in the crypto casino. He said that stablecoins would fall very closely under the purview of the SEC, and he was just not a fan of them. So what I'm wondering is if PayPal will be able to change the regulators' views on stablecoins, or if regulators may go a little easy on them because they already have those relationships and they're not really a crypto native company. So I'm curious to see as to what will happen in 2022. But Naomi, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, so I completely agree, Jen. I have the same questions. I think it's a little different to the Facebook scenario where Facebook was like, we're going to build a stablecoin. The government was like hell you are. In this case, you're right. PayPal is a financial app, so it's much more in their wheelhouse, and the government doesn't really have the same tired arguments that they used against the DM. But I wanted to go back to PayPal's original vision. So back in 1999, they created T-shirts that had their mission statement on it, which was to create a new world currency. Their original vision was not to create a payment mechanism for people. It was to create a new currency. I want to go back to a talk that Peter Thiel gave in late 1999, just a few weeks after PayPal's product launch. He was talking about third world countries. He was saying that many of these countries' governments play fast and loose with their currencies. They use inflation, sometimes wholesale currency devaluations, to take wealth away from their citizens. Eventually, PayPal will be able to change this. PayPal will give citizens worldwide more direct control over their currencies than they've ever had before. It will be nearly impossible for corrupt governments to steal wealth from their people through their old means. PayPal really did want to create a new currency. A government didn't want them to do that. And then they ended up getting bought out by eBay. And so that kind of put everything on hold there. But it is interesting that now we've got this crypto revolution. It was said that, Bitcoin fulfilled PayPal's original vision. And now PayPal is saying, okay, well, we're going to create our own stablecoin as well. It's just a very interesting kind of full circle for their company. But Chrissy, I'm going to throw to you for your take on all this.
It's interesting you brought all that up, and I was actually waiting for you to go to but why are they bothering with a stable coin in the meantime when Bitcoin already exists and they already have Bitcoin as a possibility? Is this maybe a holding pattern for them? Is it an interim solution? And if they are all about all of those goals that they stated, why are they not just making it easier to actually operate with Bitcoin? And is this a regulatory play on their part? So
Well, I just wanted to jump in before I throw back to Zach. I would say because all the original founders who had this vision are no longer there. And I would say that's why they're, far removed. Like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, all of these, the PayPal mafia, as they were called, they were all kind of these free market people who really did want to create this monetary revolution. And they've all since moved on to other things. So I think you're absolutely right. This is far removed from this original, like, blazing trail that PayPal was trying to create. But it's still interesting, they're going this route. I think that there's going to be so many companies going this route. But Zach, I'll throw to you.
Yeah, that's really interesting hearing just like Elon and Peter Thiel just like wiling out with their like libertarian PayPal era, like early days. Like that is wow, it really is a blast from the past. So thanks for bringing that up. Good stuff, Naomi. Interesting to see this stuff. It's curious to see, these fintech companies embrace crypto. And then again, they take sort of these incremental steps down the rabbit hole. We saw this with Robinhood. They've been introducing some functionality to do sending crypto off platform. I'm not sure where PayPal's status stands on that with making some of their offerings a little bit less custodial, but it is interesting to see this little incremental baby steps toward a more perfect crypto union between fintech companies and their crypto offerings. So curious to see what comes of this and whether or not it actually becomes of use and of value to the PayPal user base. But I don't know. Time will tell.
Zach, I think you have the next story.
Are we changing gears?
Yeah.
I didn't even get that memo.
Yeah, we are.
We're changing gears here? All right, we're changing gears. All right, let's talk about the metaverse real quick. All right, you hear about the metaverse, and usually it's based on Ethereum. You hear about Decentraland, the Sandbox. These are Ethereum-based metaverses. But all of a sudden, we're seeing some crypto companies set up shop in a competing metaverse in the Solana blockchain world. That is called Portals. And we reported the news over the weekend that Binance US announced that it's building a space in the Portals metaverse to engage with its user base. Interesting to see sort of a Solana metaverse competitor spring up during this whole season of metaverse mania. And it does seem like this may be the one that is gaining the most momentum out of the gate while the metaverse finds its footing. So I'm going to throw this to Jen. Curious to see this sort of corporate land grab in the metaverse right now. We're talking about Binance, but also Portals tells us FTX.US is working on a space. A number of Solana-based projects have spaces that they're putting up here as well. Curious to see this land grab happen, and curious for your thoughts.
Yeah, I was waiting for the big Solana metaverse play, and I guess here it is. I mean, I think we've seen a lot of brands and artists and creators kind of ape into the Sandbox and Decentraland, and it looks like maybe this metaverse is going to be for our corporate crypto native players to engage their communities. We've talked a lot on this show about, having different metaverses for different communities, and maybe Solana can be the metaverse for the crypto community. I don't know though. I mean, there's a lot of negative sentiment, I guess, towards Solana in the crypto community. So I just wonder how this is going to play out, but I think it's cool if this is going to be the metaverse for the crypto native corporates. Naomi.
I think that a lot of people need to realize the state of play for metaverses right now. It's incredibly difficult to build things in these worlds. The rules of play are not really laid down yet. It's so expensive. So when you feel like you're building your storefront or whatever, and you think, oh, okay, this is called Decentraland, or this is like some sort of metaverse, this is like a peer-to-peer thing, right? It's like, well, no, it's not. If you were to actually be building this stuff on chain and this to actually be fully decentralized, it would be astronomically expensive. So what a lot of people are doing, creating these third-party situations where all of your stuff's kind of stored on their servers. And so it's interesting to kind of see this world. And like, you're right, Jen, everyone gives Solana flack because they are a lot more centralized than other chains, but that may actually work in the metaverse's favor right now, because, metaverses are so centralized currently. I think eventually they will get to a state of play where, there'll be interoperability, things will be decentralized, you'll have ownership over stuff. But like currently, I mean, we haven't figured out like how to whitelist tokens to give them like property property rights access into other people's places. You're walking through walls. Like there are all these rules to be figured out. It's really complicated when you're building a new society, not just in real life, but in like a virtual society as well. It's really complicated to get this stuff figured out. And so we're really at the early stages. It is very interesting to see some big companies diving into Solana at these early stages, though, because, I mean, it may be a sign of what's to come. Solana really did take a lot of market share away from Ethereum. Obviously, Ethereum is still numero uno, but I think it's interesting to see these rivals come up, especially when it is so expensive to build this stuff on Ethereum right now. But Zach, I think I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I was just going to say I was putzing around the Samsung store this weekend when I was getting this story
Zach,
ready.
you're just always in the metaverse lately.
He just hang out in the metaverse.
10 minutes, just go cruise around, my little guy, walking through, seeing what kind of free tchotchkes I could get. Definitely got a couple badges. Thanks, Samsung. Appreciate you. It was kind of cool.
There you go.
It was like actually a kind of immersive and enjoyable experience. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm a little bit more bullish on this than I had in the past. To be fair, it is still kind of janky, but when you get a feel for it and you get to explore, you get to feel like you're actually exploring the digital space, which I think is missing from most internet experiences these days here in the prime of Web 2. But I don't know. It was interesting. I don't know if Solana is going to be able to get sort of that network effect to make it work here in Portals, but putzing around Decentraland and seeing people interact with the space was definitely interesting.
Did you go to the magical tree forest?
I did. Yes, that was cool. Yeah.
I think that the platform that makes it the most user-friendly and most easy to get around and discover is the one that's going to do the best. I started futzing around in Decentraland over the break around New Year's, and it was honestly, I found a little spooky. I felt like I was wandering around in this weird post-apocalyptic land. It was dark, and I was finding all these buildings that had names on them of, companies I recognized, I guess kind of like what Portals is going to be looking like. And it just felt like a ghost town. I felt like I was wandering through, I don't know, some dead zone where, or monuments to things that once were. And hopefully the experience will be a little more lively in Solana. So we'll see where that goes.
And I think it depends on the rules of whoever's building that particular metaverse. Like I was putzing through voxels recently as kind of a, like it's anything goes kind of world. Like there was like a XXX, pole dancer up in like one of the stores. I was like, how do you get up there? That seems kind of interesting. Like I'm kind of wandering around. I'm like, listening, suddenly music starts playing. I'm like, oh, someone's selling their like NFT for their song that they've created. Like it was kind of cool just seeing these things that people have put everywhere that were these digital artifacts, but things that we've come to recognize as everyday artifacts we use in our life. Like it's kind of cool to see that in a different context in this metaverse. Well, I think I'll get there, Christy. I get the spooky feel.
We're gonna get
like
there.
It's a bit weird.
Yeah.
It's unbuilt out. It's like there are kind of these hubs of like hotspots of where it has been built out, but then there's empty space. Like it's really interesting to be at the early days because I do think this is going to become like a staple, and the fact that we're able to explore this in the early days is kind of cool. But I'll throw it back to you, Zach, for tease. What's coming up next?
Yeah, I like Tristy's comment. It reminded me of like those blogs of like dead malls. Like we could make a photo blog of screenshots of the metaverse, and it has that dead mall vibe. All right, anyway, I'll stop. All right, we're going to take a break. We're just going to refresh for a little bit, just take a little downtime. Then when we get back, we're going to talk about Bitcoin's hash rate is up, even though its price is down. We're going to talk about that more, touching on Kazakhstan, etc. Stick with us. It's The Hash. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
What's up, everybody? This is Spencer Dinwiddie.
And I'm Solo Cisse.
And this is New Money, brought to you by CoinDesk.
All I hear, go get the money. So I go get it. Hate means I do something right. So I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him. Yeah, I'ma let him. I hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I'ma let him.
What we'll see is money not only being exchanged for this digital currency, but the frictionless movement across borders. It's going to be able to flow as easy as a text message.
Staying true to yourself, right? Like you've always been true to yourself.
I just want to share that with everybody. You could be yourself in full capacity.
It's our duty to take our visions and be fearless in our pursuit.
Be my most authentic self and show people that, look, I'm an athlete, and yes, I'm also a part of the LGBT community.
My goal is to have, my own NFT, my own entire IP, like my own everything.
How do you think, blockchain and crypto impacts the way you think about it?
I think everyone has like some sort of like, how'd you get into Bitcoin? It's like asking someone if they smoke. It's like, yo.
Embracing where the world is going. And when the whole world shut down, we saw just how important tech was.
It was more so of my style and the foods that I cooked that kind of pushed me. I wanted to live the lifestyle of an athlete or an artist while doing what I love.
Having that open mind, having that flexibility just allows you to be of so much more service to, youth or society in general.
Gamers, maybe it's because you guys just hustle different.
Anything you want to be great at, you got to put hours and hours in every single day.
So Bitcoin's hash rate, it is recovering. And we had an article overnight by Elisa Gritsky that talked about how the major mining pools have nearly recovered as Kazakhstan's internet is partially restored. Now, if you don't know what the hash rate is the measure of computational power that is securing the Bitcoin network. And a good chunk of that migrated from China over to Kazakhstan over the past few months. And if you've seen in the news, there's been a whole bunch of civil unrest in Kazakhstan, and they actually shut the internet down, which is really not a great thing if you're a miner, because you have to use the internet in order to connect to the blockchain. And so we lost a whole chunk of mining hash power. Now, the interesting thing to understand here is that, yes, we lost about somewhere between 12 and 18%, but the blockchain just kept going. The Bitcoin network was still super, super secure. It wasn't a major blip. In fact, the difficulty, which is adjusted every 2 weeks for miners, depending on how hard it is to find the next block, it gets adjusted every 2 weeks. If it's too easy to find a block, if there's not enough power, computational power, they make it harder to find the next block. And if there's lots, they make it easier, or the other way around. At any rate, it adjusted upward again, which means that really things have been moving along quite nicely. And the hash rate is back up to a pretty high level, certainly higher than it was when we lost a lot of the Chinese mining power a year ago. So you can see that level just steadily climbing up and up and up. And it was unfazed by losing the amount of hash power that was held in Kazakhstan. Most of that is back now. And miners are reporting that they're back online and the territory is no longer being impacted. So I guess, Naomi, I'm thinking you probably have something to say about the resiliency of Bitcoin in a situation like this.
I mean, it's very interesting. I actually got some questions from interviewers when all this happened, and they were worried. They were like, I've heard that it's somewhat centralized and now it's kind of been shut down. Has Bitcoin been shut down? And you have to explain, exactly what you just explained, Christy, that actually these things adjust. And that's the wonderful beauty of Bitcoin and its design. And so it's very interesting to see this. I would say that the most illuminating part of all of this is actually how fragile our internet is and how much we rely on it. Because honestly, I mean, it's a little scary when you have the number 2 Bitcoin mining location in the world have their internet just shut off. It's like, well, can the US just shut off our internet? Can the US just start filtering packages and packets and filtering out, like banning Bitcoin mining if they decided they didn't like it? Like it raises a lot of questions about how undecentralized, how centralized our internet is. And so I think that's definitely something people are working on at the moment, but we have a long way to go. The people were saying about Kazakhstan that it's hard to know how long the internet will continue to operate. It's been restored several times over the past days, but these moments are brief, they're unpredictable. And so it's like, I mean, it is dangerous when countries have control of the internet. I know the internet gets shut off in India all the time. Every time there's civil unrest, I have some friends there who are just like, every time there's a protest, they just shut it off. Countries do that. We're lucky in the United States that that's not something that happens, but it is something that the government has the capacity to do. So it's something to keep in mind when we're building all this technology that's based on the internet. And I think that, we just really need to speed up our progress towards finding a way to decentralize this. I know that there are lots of interesting things going on. I mean, even Elon Musk with Starlink is figuring out different systems where you don't have to rely on underground cables that could be controlled by governments. They don't have base stations in any jurisdiction that you're relying on. They're kind of spread out so you don't rely on any particular base station for internet coverage in certain jurisdictions. Like that sort of redundancy is interesting. You've got Blockstream with their satellite, creating redundancy as well in the system. Like lots of interesting experiments, but we still have a long way to go there. But Jen, I'll throw to you for your thoughts.
We are just on the same wavelength lately because that's exactly what I wanted to touch on. They talk about in the article this centralized kill switch. So, in Kazakhstan, they were able to turn the internet off, and we talk about these decentralized platforms that are offering all of these amazing products that are really allowing anyone to access these financial solutions that they couldn't before. But we have this centralized control if governments can turn off the internet. And I don't think we talk about it enough. We talk about it on this show sometimes, but I don't think we talk about it enough. And I really think that we need to catch up when it comes to decentralized internet. But Naomi, back up to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, in the blockchain space in particular, there are interesting experiments. Like I've been diving into helium more lately, just figuring that out, just because there's a brewery right near me that actually is running a helium node. There was Dash Fest about a month ago. And I was like, there's a giant antenna on the top of their brewery. And they're a place that's very crypto welcoming. They accept all kinds of cryptocurrencies. They love it. They're big evangelists, been in the space for forever. That's Ebenezer Brewery. So check them out if you're in New Hampshire. But they were running this node, so I talked to them about it, and I realized that actually this connects all the way down to Nashua. This is a way to create redundancy in the internet if internet service providers cut off contact for certain areas. It's just interesting to see these networks start to get built out. But again, we have a long way to go. But Zach, I'll throw to you for final thoughts.
I got nothing. Let's move on. Jen.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Okay. So there was some trouble in Pudgy Penguin Paradise. So this is what happened. The community voted out Pudgy Penguin's founders after they allegedly failed to deliver on goals and drained treasury funds. Now, some are arguing that the project should just be completely decentralized. So this is kind of a first in the NFT space. We really saw NFTs take off last year. And something that I think we talk about a lot with these projects is people are putting their money into the NFTs. There are these very ambitious roadmaps attached to the projects. Sometimes the project's founders are not doxxed, so we don't know who they are. And sometimes people fall victim to scams. So in the case of Pudgy Penguins, no one was scammed, but the founders weren't delivering on their promises and they were voted out by the community. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity to talk about maybe how to protect yourself in the NFT space or what decentralization might look like if they're able to do this with Pudgy Penguins. So Naomi, I'm going to throw this off to you. What did you take away from the article?
It's interesting because there's always talk about promises that were made. And so I think when you buy into a platform and there are promises at the outset, it's one thing if the CEO reneges on them. In this case, people actually bought into this stuff in July. And then it wasn't until September that the CEO added all of these extra things and said, we're going to be doing educational books on NFTs. We're going to do a game and all of this. And so it kind of came after. So it's kind of an interesting situation that now the community is feeling like they had something taken away from them, whereas when they initially bought this stuff, that wasn't really part of the original deal. But I do when you start talking about draining treasury funds and they still didn't produce anything, that gets a little bit different, because if you have a community that's relying on these treasury funds, whether the purpose of the treasury funds was outlined at the outset or not, the understanding is implicit. Those treasury funds are meant to be for development and all of these wonderful new products built on the platform. So if they drained that. That's pretty dodgy there. It is very interesting to see NFT platforms and projects start to explore more decentralized territory. NFTs are completely centralized and really fragile at the moment. A lot of people don't realize how fragile they are, and that their JPEG is generally on someone's specific server. It's not backed up using like Arweave or anything like that, and IPFS. Like most of these things, if the company wanted to shut these things off, get rid of it, then they could. That initial file, they could just take it or replace it or whatever. A lot of people don't realize how fragile their NFTs really are at the moment. So I applaud a community that's wanting to move more in a decentralized direction. We'll see how this turns out. Generally, things tend to be centralized because wrangling people is hard. There's a lot of friction when you want groupthink to, create some sort of good outcome for a project. Generally, it doesn't work that way. So we'll see if they succeed. I've always seen NFTs as being predisposed towards a more centralized format because I've always seen them more as part of like a gaming world where you want your NFTs to be updated, as your character gets updated in the game. Like you kind of want someone controlling that, but you just want that asset to evolve. And it's kind of an interesting world, and we're in this weird mid world right now. But Zach, I'll throw it to you for your thoughts.
I think if you get more than 10 people in any group setting, you get all of the pros and cons of society in a small group, right? You could be in the middle of the woods and be 12 people, and it would be the same dynamic that you would find in larger groups. And I'm always struck by that. And I'm always fascinated by this social layer of NFT projects or DAOs or any number of things. There's this big social layer that often isn't really discussed, I guess. We look at these things as though they're monolithic and unending and immutable, but there's this big social layer. And I think, Naomi, you're right. Social dynamics tend to be the same over time once you hit a critical mass of people trying to make collective decisions. And I think what you're seeing here is just a great example of that within the NFT space in a way that we previously hadn't seen. We'd seen these hard forks for other blockchains in a more technical capacity, but this is sort of a socially enforced hard fork that we saw play out in real time. And that's why this piece is really interesting. Christy, definitely curious for your thoughts on this one.
Yeah. I think the very coolest part of this story is the whole mutiny on the HMS Pudgy Penguin. And we are looking at a possible DAO situation that didn't start off that way, didn't start off as decentralized governance. And it's not like you've got a centralized figure at the top who's saying, okay, now we are going to shift to decentralized governance. What we've got is the masses overthrowing the centralized founders, the group that was at the top, creating anarchy essentially, and then trying to create a governance model from anarchy. And that, I think, is what is going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Christy. I think you're right. That's the most important part of this story, that it's the overthrow of these founders, creating a wrapped asset that runs on this parallel system. It'll be really interesting to see what happens there. Usually when you have these movements that come from, just fighting against someone else, that's all they really have in common. You don't see much cohesion once they start to splinter off, but we'll see if they can rally around something important and continue this. But Zach, I'll throw it back to you for wrap.
I'll shut it down there. That was a good note, talking about societal implications of Web3, crypto dynamics. Man, we could be sociology majors or scientists or something.
Maybe.
Let's do
Absolutely.
it. Let's write a thesis. Why not?
Let's just do it.
Dissertation?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Let's just do it.
Anybody?
I'm in.
Let's just do it.
I'm down.
All right. That doctor is going to look real nice in front of our names after 7 years of work. All right, cool. That's it for the hash. I'm Zach Seward. We got Naomi Brockwell. We got Jen Sanasi. We got Christy Harkin filling in. It's lovely. It's going to be great. We'll be back in tomorrow to get you caught up on the crypto news. Stick with us on CoinDesk.com throughout the rest of the day. And at 3 p.m. Eastern, go check out All About Bitcoin. Another good show brought to you by CoinDesk TV. All right. Thanks so much. Hope you're having a good Monday, and we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.